guess where I've been? The concept of memory cards being an absolute essential— I have my AirPods in. The concept of memory cards being an absolute essential accessory for gaming hardware has been chilling with dinosaurs and dodos for decades now, ever since the 7th generation of home consoles all launched with internal storage that you would use for your save files instead. But external storage for gaming never really went away, just nothing was built for gaming hardware as much as a memory card was. Now it's just a standard microSD card. Now, as I wrote this intro, I did remember that expansion cards for the Xbox Series X do exist, but I'm going to pretend they don't so that I don't need to rewrite it. Ignoring whatever Microsoft is doing, the closest thing I've seen in a while is this, the Genki SavePoint. This little SSD enclosure was essentially purpose-built for the Steam Deck and other similar PC handheld devices, with MagSafe compatible mounting to slap an extra terabyte or two of storage for games or even entire operating systems. Realistically, this is just an SSD, and that's how I've been using it, but it is a cool one that hopefully I can get at least 8 minutes out of so I can turn on mid-rolls. My name is Harry, you're watching Probably Hades, and this is my review of the Genki SavePoint. Genki is still a relatively new company, starting off making Bluetooth audio adapters for the Switch in 2018, back when Nintendo was too stubborn to build in native support for them. We don't need those adapters anymore, but Genki has been making other products like the Shadowcast and the Covert Dock ever since, and most importantly for this specific section of the video, they've been continuously refining their unboxing experiences. Now this box isn't exactly magnificent, but it's pretty damn good. Also, I can't think of anywhere else to put this, so I'm just gonna say it here. I do want to clarify that I did back this on Kickstarter. I didn't purchase it as a normal product, so my experience wasn't exactly the same as yours will be if you decide to buy this now. For what it's worth, I did buy this Switch Lite case straight through their website, and I had no issues. Shipping was fast, and I didn't need support, but it was an option, so there's that. But I didn't buy the SavePoint on their website. Inside the box, you'll get the enclosure itself, a hex key to take it apart, the user manual, a USB-C 3.2 cable, and the adhesive MagSafe ring that really differentiates this product from other enclosures on the market. If you purchase one of the enclosures that comes with a pre-installed SSD, all you need to do now is just plug it in. That's assuming you're the type to use this SSD to boot Windows on your Steam Deck, because they all have Windows on them pre-configured for the Steam Deck. If that's not your thing, just format the drive and you'll be fine. If you're like me and you bought the empty enclosure option, it only takes a few minutes to unscrew the one hex screw at the bottom with the included key and detach the colored accent piece from the plastic enclosure. This piece here also acts as the heatsink, which does cause some issues which I'll get into later. Once you've got that open, you just slot in your 2230 M2 SSD with up to 2 terabytes of storage and lock it in with this screwless installation mechanism. If you want to use the MagSafe mounting, which I'm going to guess that you do if you bought this, you'll just need to remove the double-sided adhesive and stick it onto your device, assuming you're not using it with an iPhone that doesn't need a ring because it's in the phone. Unless you bought a 16E for some reason. I put mine right on the middle of my Steam Deck, but Genki does have images showing it in the top corner, which I'm gonna say that you should do, and that's probably what I would have done if I'd seen those photos before putting mine on. While we've got the shield open, we can really take a look at the internals here. The only thing that sticks out to me personally is this capacitor here, which provides protection for your data against sudden power loss in the event that your Steam Deck battery dies or that you manage to accidentally unplug it. That shield is made of what appears to be aluminium, especially considering that it does act as a heatsink, so I would assume it's aluminium. They don't list it on their website though, and it has a cool shape to it which differs based on the different colors you can purchase: Firestorm Peaks, Cyber Steel, Nebula Pulse, or Jade Crystal, which I have here. The overall build quality here is great, and the metal shield for the heatsink pairs nicely with the transparent dark plastic housing, which lets the indicator lights peek through when it's connected to a device. On the top, you've got 2 separate USB-C ports, one for data transfer and another for 100-watt power pass-through to keep your handheld or other device charged. On most premium Windows handhelds like the Lenovo Legion Go, this isn't exactly a necessary addition considering they both have 2 USB-C ports, but it definitely comes in handy on something like the Steam Deck and especially on something like an iPhone. I can see that being very useful in my personal use case. If I decided that I wanted to replace that Sony there and start shooting ProRes log, that would be nice to have a charging port. Even with those other handhelds, having the USB-C port on the drive itself lets you keep the bottom port free when you're using it. The MagSafe adhesive you'll need to use to get MagSafe functionality is really strong. I've had it applied to my Steam Deck for around 4 months now and it hasn't budged at all. And the magnets in both the ring and the SSD seem to share that sentiment, especially when you're using the adhesive ring with the SSD. Although using the SSD on its own with a MagSafe iPhone doesn't seem to be as strong as it is with the sticker, which I find particularly interesting. The included cable you'd probably want to use here is great as well. It can easily handle the maximum 10 gigabits of data throughput that the drive can provide, and it's long enough to give you some extra wiggle room while being short enough to stay out of your way during use. It's got these metallic right angle connectors on both ends that allow for much nicer cable management when it's mounted using the magnets. And the cable itself has a fabric body that seems to be pretty resilient and keeps the two ends from fraying and overall slows wear and tear. Using the SavePoint is about as good as you'd expect an SSD like this to be. Like I mentioned earlier, the magnets are strong, especially paired with the ring that it comes with, the cable and drive are reliable, and the disk speeds are fast. In my personal testing, even with over 800 gigabytes of data on the drive, the disk still benchmarks at just over a gigabyte per second in read and just under a gigabyte per second in writes with a course I forgot to find the name of the drive that I have in there. I have a Corsair MP600 Core Mini in there, and it easily reaches both of those speeds that I just mentioned.
Sorry if you're editing 8K60 or 12K60 off this, it's not going to work. 12K24 though, that's fine.
You're going to have a great time playing games or booting off this drive, or maybe shooting 4K60 ProRes with an iPhone 15 Pro, or doing whatever you will do with this SSD, provided that you're using the included NVMe or a reputable and high quality third-party one like I have. The only real issue I've noticed in my use is that occasionally if you put the drive right next to your ear, you can hear a very slight hiss, and you can hear a more noticeable clicking noise when you disconnect the drive. I believe that both of these are caused by the capacitor there, and as far as I can tell from a non-electrical expert point of view, it doesn't seem to impact the drive, its performance, or really be anything that needs to be worried about. Although if you know more about this than I do, please leave a comment to let me know and I'll fact check and pin it if it's helpful. I've only been able to find one other report of this happening though in a Reddit thread, which does lead me to slightly believe that I could have a faulty unit, which would also line up with the fact that I backed it on Kickstarter. I probably received a very early production unit. I've also seen reports that the heatsink can get dangerously hot over extended or heavy use, like running an OS or downloading games, which is what the thing is designed and advertised for, and I have occasionally experienced this myself. Petapixel's review mentioned that the drive was hot to touch after running 2 disk speed tests, and they compared it to touching the top of an active stove. In fairness, this is the heatsink doing its job, and Petapixel noted that there were no signs of thermal throttling even while it was hot to touch. Realistically, you'll just definitely need to place this in a spot that's far from your hands. Considering that they want you to magnetically attach it to the back of a gaming handheld, this might be difficult, but you definitely will want to do that. The Genki SavePoint is priced just shy of $50 or 93 Australian dollars for those of us watching this upside down, which is definitely up there for an enclosure. If you decide to add an SSD in there as well, all of which seem to be out of stock on their website as of writing, you're looking at anywhere from $120 for the cheapest at 512 gigabytes up to $250 for the largest drive at 2 terabytes. A lot of the storage cost definitely comes from the fact that it takes a 2230 SSD. These drives come in at around 231 Australian dollars from Silicon Power, and a standard 2280 form factor NVMe from the same company with the same specs comes in at 169 Australian dollars. Enclosures shouldn't really have a price difference solely because of the size, but what I've found is that enclosures made solely for 2230 drives tend to be more specialty items, and therefore have a higher price than most 2280 enclosures, which can also take 2230 SSDs, and I've seen those for as low as 25 Australian dollars. This MagSafe enclosure from brand seems to be the closest to the SavePoint, and it comes in at 50 Australian dollars with the same 100-watt power pass-through port and even 2 USB-C cables. It even has another ring of magnets on the enclosure itself to allow for other accessories to snap on top of the drive, effectively acting as a MagSafe pass-through. It's also got a capacitor for data protection as well, and even 2 included MagSafe rings. However, it is much larger, it doesn't include the toolless SSD installation, and it requires 4 screws to get to the SSD, as opposed to a single hex key. I also haven't used it, I can't vouch for its quality, although that definitely might be something you want to check out as well before you go for the SavePoint. And if you do go for it, let me know how it goes in the comments. I would say I recommend own the SavePoint. It does everything it says it does perfectly, and at some very fast speeds considering it's a non-Thunderbolt drive. However, looking at some other alternatives from admittedly more no-name companies, it could be worth shopping around a bit. If you want something that looks and feels premium, something that you can, hypothetically if they come back into stock, get configured and ready to go for a Windows Steam Deck dual boot setup, or you just want one of the smallest 2230 SSD enclosures that you can get, you're going to love the SavePoint. And that's it, those are my thoughts. I'd love to make some other videos on Genki's other products as well at some point. The Shadowcast 2 is easily one of the best capture cards on the market right now, solely because of its size and quality. I've heard great things about the Covert dock, even though I can't use it because my power outlets don't look like this, and the Sire sling bag looks so nice. Like usual, Genki had no involvement in the creation of this video, and I backed this project on Kickstarter with my own funding. If you like this video, make sure to hit that button and maybe even subscribe if you really liked it. You can follow me over on Instagram, Blue Sky, and everything else with the links on screen and in the description below. If you want more videos, you can click over here to check out how I turn my MacBook Air into a Linux laptop, or you can click over here to check out whatever YouTube thinks you'll want to watch. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. I forgot to charge my teleprompter remote. That's why I have this.